Hi Photos subscribers. Today we're talking about hot shoe flashes, or you will see a lot of these as being flashes that are attachable to your cameras. A lot of your cameras, if you have a hot shoe on your camera, it will look something like this. And you can see, as I tilt it forward a little bit here, there are some notches of this curved metal that the hot shoe of your flash will fit into. And they will directly align with those little connections on the bottom of your hot shoe flash as with your camera. So real quick, to show you how they connect, the hot shoe flash will be able to adjust forward or it will adjust backward in varying intervals. And with that, you will attach or for the Canon anyway, the squared front side, and the hot shoe flash should be the same on any model of camera. It'll go up inside the hot shoe of the camera. Let me reattach that just to make sure that's in frame. So the square side will go up inside the hot shoe flash on your camera and slide up to the very front. And it should, you can see that there, align fairly flat parallel to the back of the camera. Now on this one, this hot shoe flash, and most of them, if they're any kind of good hot shoe flash connection, they're going to want to lock. So I slide that over until there's a tiny little click, and I don't know if you can hear it very well. Let's see if I can get this over here. There will be a tiny little click. Very subtle, but it does lock and it doesn't come off very easy. That's the whole point of it, is so that when you're using your camera with the hot shoe flash and you raise your camera up, your flash doesn't fall off your camera. Now, we'll get into a lot more depth and detail as to how these operate, but in the very beginning of all these videos here, we're just going over the basics and the details of what it looks like, how things work, what the basic details are, so that we can get into the more advanced things in the future. But to be continuing with basics, on the Canon here, we've got a little bit of the power and the zoom function, the mode, and the intensity. You'll be able to select, add or subtract the intensity of your flash, and then select it, setting that option to be concurrent every time you take a photograph. These type of quick strobe flash, well, they're not really strobes, they're flashes, are meant to reset very quickly. So if you do a lot of shots in succession, if you do the burst mode, I believe is what most of the camera manufacturers call them, doing 3 to 10 frames in 1 second, this kind of flash will reset and fire every time. Now, some of them are not rated to go off or flash as quickly as 10 frames a second. So be sure to look at, if you're gonna buy a flash, take a look and see how fast its refresh rate is as far as being able to go off and fire the next flash, so that every time you actuate your camera shutter, it will actually light what your camera shutter is expecting, or your camera sensor, every time the shutter opens, is going to see what it expects to see. Partly because of what it expects to see is it expects to see a scene in front of it based on the settings that the camera has in operation. Its ISO, its aperture, and the shutter release speed. All is supposed to be set to one specific ratio so that you can get everything dialed in just properly with the amount of light you're going to expect in that shot, and have the scene lit in front of you so that the camera itself can see and the sensor approximate the exposure time and level of visual it needs to approximate what the film was years ago. Therefore, that ISO rating is important, so that it has the approximate exposure level for exposure time frame. Your shutter opens for that amount of time and then closes so that there's no additional light being added to the exposure of that film, and your flash goes off to approximate the added fill light if you're shooting outside, or if you're shooting indoors, then your flash will light enough to create that there are terms out there for it, but basically it's a type of created light, and we'll get into the specific terms later, but what it is it's specifically designed to allow your scene of whatever your camera is aimed at to be lit properly, so that it can have the proper amount of darks and lights and everything blended all together. That being said, we will get into a lot of more specifics and details on how to improve photography, but we need to go over some of the basics so that we're not getting anything confused. Thank you so much for your patience in watching these videos. I hope they've been a help as you begin your photography journey. Please subscribe, click that bell, and ring it so that you don't miss any future videos that come up, and you can watch as we go through learning photography from the basics onto establishing our great photography. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.